I got 50 completely random building tips and tricks to help you improve almost any build. They range from small details to more general building tips that you could apply to any build. So yeah, with that stuff out of the way, let's get right into it. All right, starting the video off with a classic. At number 1, we have the fridge, classic 2 iron blocks and iron door. You could of course surround it with like counters and a sink, oven, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just a classic of making kitchens in Minecraft. Next up, we have a way to texture sandstone paths. If you place sandstone stairs upside down, you get access to this texture. There's no other way to get on the top of the block, so you have to place stairs upside down. Pretty interesting tip if you're doing something like a sidewalk or something like that. I use it all the time. Next up, we have an easy way to make a picnic table. Just 4 scaffolding and then like this checkerboard of white and red carpet. I like the way it looks. You could also do it with trapdoors. Yeah, something like that. Just using trapdoors instead of scaffolding. Kind of interesting. I don't know which one I prefer, but yeah, you could do either one. They both look pretty good in my opinion. All right, next we got like leaves and kind of shrubbery. I see a lot of people like kind of not really doing this in, like landscape stuff, and I feel like it helps a lot with builds. You can mix a few different leaves in there. I usually do oak, spruce, and azalea to kind of make like not like a super specific gradient, but just like the lighter one at the top usually, and spruce at the bottom, just for a bit of light to dark. You put these on the edges of like cliffs. You could put them against houses. They, in my opinion, add a lot to like basically every build. Yeah, I really like them. You can mix some moss in too, of course. Next up, we got the lantern and chain combo. I'm sure a lot of people already know this, of course, but the texture for the chain is literally like the top of the lantern. So they connect pretty much perfectly. So you could use chains to kind of put a bit of height variation on where you put lanterns. In my opinion, it looks really bad if you have like multiple lanterns like on the same height, so I kind of usually try to mix it up at least a little bit. Adds a lot to a build in my opinion. For number 6, I just have like small patches of moss and like an empty kind of grass area. I think it adds a lot because the grass texture can get really repetitive, and I think this kind of helps just mix it up a lot, especially in like biomes where like maybe the grass color isn't good. You could just mostly use moss instead. But yeah, pretty important in my opinion. And number 7, we have campfires just in general, specifically the extinguished version when you click on it with a shovel. I use it a lot for like variation when I'm doing stuff like overhangs. It's a bit lower and it also just like a bit different of a color, but not too different. So I kind of really like the way it looks. You could also use it in bridges, which I also really like doing. I put them in basically every bridge I make, I think, just because again, the bit of height variation it has and texture variation. And you can even put it above windows for some kind of like overhang here with some trapdoors and some fence gates. I like it. Looks pretty good in my opinion. Next up, number 8, we got the hay wheelbarrow, classic. I have another example here. I just kind of like the way it looks in a farm setting. I feel like it adds a lot of like movement and like a live feeling to the build. Like someone came in here like recently because trampled the crops a bit, came through to gather some wheat, and they're gonna leave. Just like the way it looks, makes the build feel a lot more alive. Number 9, we have the water wheelbarrow. I like the way it looks. I use a cauldron on it. I just think it has a bit of a different look to it for like, maybe it's more of like a heavy duty one or something. I have no idea. The polished stair matches pretty well too, in my opinion. Next up, we got a bit more of like a general one, which is just kind of paths in general and like path texturing. Stuff like mixing podzol, coarse dirt, dirt path and mud to kind of make it look like, a really well-traveled dirt path. Or with stone, of course, mix cobble and like stone bricks, cracked stone bricks, give it a different look. And there's a good example of this kind of path here. In my opinion, the more like mud bricks you add, the more like heavily traveled it looks. Like maybe this is like traveled by like carriages or something and not just foot traffic, and it got like really, condensed over time. But yeah, I like the way it looks. Adds a lot of like interesting variation to the path. At number 11, we have the first roof tip of this video, which is anvils on the top, specifically for gray roofs, but you can kind of do it with other colors too. I just feel like it makes it look a bit more intricate and like well detailed. And you combine this with tip number 12, which is candles on top, which are these little spikes. So these two combined kind of makes a very detailed roof, as you can see with this build here. I really like the way this roof looks. Kind of matches with this gray roof gradient, and it comes up with the anvils. And I think mostly gray candles here. You can use some other colors, but I like the way the gray ones look. But yeah, it just makes a very detailed and kind of intricate, fancy looking roof. And yeah, I think it brings the build together. And just like anvils and candles work for stone roofs, for brown roofs with like wood, I feel like fences and brown candles work. Again, it's kind of like a section of the roof, of course, but this would just combine into the middle, and I think it looks pretty good. It just adds a bit more detail to it, which fits pretty well for some builds. Next up, we got maybe the most important tip in this whole video, which is just to gradient and texture your walls. I could take just a very simple stone brick wall and then add like a bit of a gradient. This one specifically is like moss to like andesite. And it could really transform a build. So if you look at this one, for example, basically every surface here is like heavily gradiented, and it really helps it just blend with the nature a lot more. It makes the build just way better, personally, at least. I like it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Who knows? And similar to the last one, at number 15, we have roof gradients. This is kind of a, interesting example. We would take a look at an actual full house here. We have kind of 2 different worlds of this. We have where you could do it overly colored. So this is, kind of like a fire type gradient, which, is the more colorful one, of course. And over here, you kind of have like a dark to like light gray, starting with black concrete and just going up slowly, getting brighter and brighter. And of course, reaching the anvils at the top. Both of them are gradients. I kind of prefer that one, but you can use gradients in a lot of different ways, basically, is what I'm trying to show here. Next up, we got the fence gate window cover thing, as I call it, apparently. It's just pretty simple. You could put a fence gate and the trapdoor over it, and you just kind of cover the window. It adds a lot to the wall. If you were not to have this, it would just look like really empty, and it looks honestly very bad. And you combine that with the next tip, which is number 17, which is a flower pot, just grass surrounded by trapdoors. And you can also do it with stairs, which kind of allows you to put like, you know, maybe a smaller flower pot and a lantern on it. And you combine with this, all looks pretty good as like a collective sort of wall. Number 18, we have campfire chimney smoke. I'm sure everyone knows about this one, but you know, campfire, and you surround it with trapdoors, and it of course leads to like animated smoke, which I think looks pretty good. But the other option you have is number 19, which is smoke with glass. This is kind of a rough example here, but if we click here, you kind of see a bit of a comparison to times that I've done both. You have the smoke chimney here, and over here, of course, you have the glass chimney smoke, which I think I prefer, but I've seen comments disagreeing with that, so let me know down below what you prefer. And number 20 is kind of a bit more of a general tip and not something super specific, but it's to use trapdoors and signs to kind of just detail and break up and maybe add a bit of like structural looking stuff to a blank stone wall. So here, you know, obviously I just have a wall with a gradient of stone, and then I have some trapdoors to kind of look almost like, I don't know if they're like patching something or just like some kind of structural, maybe there's a beam there or something, you know what I mean? I like the way it looks. It adds a lot to the build in my opinion, helps break up a flat wall. And number 21, we have bigger doors in general. Here I specifically made kind of like a 3x3 with like stairs to round it out. But a lot of times people in Minecraft think of just a door as, you know, the 2x1 sort of block here. But you can actually do like 2x2. You could do something like that in shape. I know the door's placed wrong, but who cares? But you know, 2 across, 3 tall. There's a lot of different like door variations you can make that kind of just fit more in different builds, of course. Number 22, we have, I guess, a lot of people's favorite, which is scaffolding for windows. I get a lot of comments about this whenever I use glass. But yeah, scaffolding can look really good as windows. Obviously, I have a lot of other details here. Another use for the campfire, of course. But yeah, these are just, instead of glass, this kind of gives like a nice frame to it, and it looks pretty good in my opinion, honestly. I really like it. But you also can use fences instead, which is tip number 23. Here I have oak and spruce, kind of just depends on, you know, the palette. But yeah, also another really solid block for windows. Number 24, we have a classic, which is the garage door. Again, just iron blocks, and then it's iron trapdoors, debug sticked, or you can just put levers on the back if you're in survival. And I also have like a doorbell here, which I guess tip 24.5, but you know, garage door, pretty solid. Looks really good on like modern-ish, like suburb homes. I really like putting it on there. Tip number 25, something, you know, I'm sure I don't need to tell experienced builders this, but just foundation layer for a build. If this carried all the way down to the ground, it would look kind of boring, but if you just kind of mix in, you know, some stones, some stone bricks, it just kind of gives the build a bit different of a look to it, and I like the way it looks. You could of course make the foundation like multiple blocks. If you have a frame on it, you could put a frame around it. You know, there's a lot of different things you could do with it, but yeah, very important part of the build in my opinion. Number 26, we have kind of more of like a general idea instead of like a specific tip, and that's just knowing like general color theory. Not anything like super crazy, like an art major or anything, but just knowing kind of what blocks go well together, what colors work well together. I recommend videos from Goose and Nice Name. I'll link those down below, and you know, maybe have them on screen. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you have seen at least some of them. They're just very good color theory videos, and yeah, knowing at least what kind of colors look good together is very important, because, you know, you don't want to build something that just will look flawed immediately based off having bad color usage. So yeah, very important. Number 27 is using ladders and rails. I have hay here specifically, but you could put it on like a lot of things, just make it look like they're like bundled together. I've seen it on barrels, like melons, pumpkins, that kind of stuff, but it just makes it kind of look like it's a bundle and adds a lot to like farm setups. And that kind of goes with number 28, which is to mix the crop growth. These are like stage 6 and 7. This is creative exclusive because, you know, in survival, they're going to just grow. So can't always do it, but I think it looks pretty good. And I have an example here, which has both. We have like kind of bundled hay, and then of course we have like the mixed age of it. I think it looks pretty good. Adds just some variation. That's kind of what a lot of these tips are, which is just adding some variation in the builds. Number 29, we have using mossy stone for foundations and of course leaves in it. This kind of just helps it blend with the environment. It makes the leaves and the grass look like they're like kind of part of the house, and just kind of helps everything look like it fits way more. If everything was very clean, it would kind of just feel like the house was just kind of like put there. But obviously it's like weathered with time. I like the way it looks personally. At number 30, we have putting a frame on your house. So as you can see, this house is kind of just flat, which looks really good, honestly. And I've been leaning towards this more recently. But especially if you're a newer builder, putting a frame on a house can do just a lot for you. It immediately adds depth, which is really important. It can be pretty hard to add depth without a frame. You gotta kind of use other blocks. But yeah, with a frame, you just immediately get kind of this like canvas here to add depth to it, and it helps a lot for newer builders in my opinion. And kind of an extension of that is tip 31, which is to kind of add shape to the frame with stuff like stairs and trapdoors. Kind of just add a nice like round shape to it. I think it just kind of adds a lot. You could of course add trapdoors on the outside too, some signs. Just kind of again add shape to this like square frame here, which, you know, the depth kind of lets you do. Number 32, we have this pretty simple thing. I don't know where I saw this, but it kind of looks almost like a security camera, or maybe like a motion sensor light that you would see in front of like a garage door or something. You need to place a block for it, obviously, but you know, candle, lever, that's literally it. I like it. Adds a lot to, like, again, suburb style houses. At number 33, we have just hanging chains off a lever in order to hang a lantern off like the side of a wall. Because usually, you know, lanterns, you can't place them against a wall. You need to hang them. So, you know, you can do something like that. Or if you use a debug stick, you can just straight up use a lever into a lantern and it looks pretty good in my opinion. Next up, we got just like dormers in general, I believe is what these are called. And it's just basically when you have like a piece of like wall and roof just kind of like jutting out of the side of a larger roof, and it just breaks it up. Because if you have just one really big roof, it just looks bad. It is overpowering, you know, it doesn't look great. But yeah, if you put like little windows coming out similar to this, it can do a lot for like the shape of the house. Next up, a bit more of like a vague one again, number 35, we just have roof shapes in general. So here are like 3 examples. You know, this one's kind of like a steeper roof, alternate with block and stair. And this one is just stairs up in like a kind of 45-degree angle. And then this one is slabs. There's obviously so many roof shapes you could do, different types of roofs. I would just recommend kind of Googling, looking at references, that kind of thing, because the shape of the roof can like kind of just change a lot about the house. So yeah, these are really important in my opinion. Next up, we have 3 kind of landscaping tips here. So first up with number 36, which is just cattails, which I know everywhere apparently has a different name for these, which I just realized, but I just use glass and then a brown candle on top of it, and it kind of just looks like they're coming out of the water, and you know, I got the puffy thing on the top. I think it adds a lot to like ponds, just a bit of variation in like color and everything. At number 37, we just have like basic landscape kind of cliff overhangs. I notice a lot of like landscaping stuff I see online. Sometimes people just don't have any overhang at all. Like wherever the stone ends is where the dirt ends. But I recommend just kind of like bring it over the edge a bit. And you could add like roots, you could add cobblestone stairs, of course texture it, coarse dirt, rooted dirt, all that stuff. And yeah, it looks pretty good, makes a nice cliff. And then at 38, we just have like kind of stones, or like I guess like small like boulders. I don't know the difference. Okay, I'll be real. But yeah, just cobblestone stairs, some moss, stone, andesite. And you can kind of see here, I have 2 build examples that I feel like have most of these details in them. So you can see the stones here, of course, varying sizes, just kind of fill the space up. You have the cattails here, which I think add a lot to the build. And of course, you have the dirt overhang, which again, I just think looks really good. It adds a lot instead of just ending and just being like flat on the side. Kind of just bring the nature over, bit of color. And yeah, it looks really good in my opinion. Next up at 39, we got fence gates under the roof. I don't know what to call these or what they're actually like meant to be in like real life. But sometimes roofs have like these under like sort of support things. I think they look pretty good in Minecraft as just fence gates. Fills up the space pretty nicely because it's kind of weird like without these. It's very empty. But yeah, with them, it looks pretty good. Number 40, I have trapdoors under the colored part of the roof. If you're using a frame and you're using a colored block on the roof that isn't just like spruce again, the color will kind of like show through here, but you can fix that by just putting a trapdoor over it and it hides the color. And yeah, then you of course can't see like the weird color peeking through, and this support beam covers these, so you know, it works out pretty good. 41, I got a trash can with a trash bag. This works kind of more as like a urban sort of build or like suburb corner, which is kind of what I have here. Pretty interesting. I don't know. Some people put sea pickles on top of this as like the top of the trash bag, I guess like where you tie it. I kind of feel like candles work better, but it's probably just up to preference. At 42, I have a trapdoor and sign privacy fence, 2 blocks tall. Can we get 3 blocks tall? Pretty simple how it's built. I like the way it looks in, again, like suburb sort of settings. It kind of looks like the best representation I can find of like a picket fence, I guess. I don't know. I like the way it looks though. It looks really good. 43, we got hanging signs as sort of like fences. I don't personally really use this that much. It kind of feels really, I don't know the best word, like significant. Like you use this in like a thing that like you really don't want to fall off the side of this, you know? I think it could look pretty good. I like the way it looks with trapdoors on the side. 44 and 45, by extension, of course, we kind of just have tutorials on how to use weird blocks as floors, like a beehive. If you don't build, you probably don't think of this as like a floor block, but the top is like a really interesting texture. It's kind of like oak wood, but like almost like softened, and it leads to like a pretty interesting floor. It's a bit lighter too. It looks pretty good. And yeah, 45, we have smithing tables. Like I use this for like basements and like garage sort of like settings, you know, like workshop areas, you know, got the workshop light and all that stuff. Just like a really interesting texture that you don't really see often, and it kind of like just gets a vibe across that I don't think anything else in the game really can do for this. Deep Slate just doesn't quite look like as good as this in my opinion. 46, we have a pretty important one in my opinion, and that is that you could connect fence gates to walls, which looks pretty good. It just kind of leads to like this nice sort of like archway shape, which I really like. It also connects to like a house, interestingly, like if there's a wall here. Just kind of has a nice shape to it, in my opinion. And that kind of segues into this one, which is you could use this like arch shape to connect it to a fence. So if you got to go from like a wall to a fence. You can't do it directly, but if you place, you know, 2 of these, it goes up to it. And I think it looks pretty good. It just is kind of the only way to really do that without a debug stick, because you could of course debug stick these 2 together, but that's not really, you know, the greatest solution, especially for survival. At 48, I don't know what to call this. We got these fake barrels. I don't know how to really explain it. Basically, if you surround a block with spruce trapdoors, it kind of just gives the impression that it's like in a container, like a barrel of some sort. For some of these, like you can put gold pressure plate on top, and it kind of looks like it's overflowing out. In my mind, you know, you can use your imagination a bit. This one I usually put in like a coffee shop in like a storage room or something. Like this is like a barrel of like coffee beans or something. This I've seen used as like cannonballs. You know, this is like ore. This is obviously like hay or wheat. Anyway, just honey, I guess. But yeah, pretty interesting. There's a lot of uses for this that you wouldn't expect, but I see this come up a lot. Getting to the final 2 here, 49, we have just this simple podzol and coarse dirt, almost like mulch or like potting soil. I'm not sure what the best term is to call this. I usually just use this on like the ground wherever I plant a lot of like plants and stuff, and it just helps break it up, because if this was all like grass, it just doesn't look good. It just looks really flat and like kind of one note, and it's too green. But yeah, if you mix some stuff in there, it looks pretty good. And finally at 50, we have lawnmower lines is what I kind of see these as, or just like really well kept grass. I've seen a few different ways to do this. I've seen people do it like this, or I've seen it like this. There's a lot of ways you could do it, but it's basically just stripes of green blocks, and it just kind of gives the impression that the lawn has been like mowed over. But yes, the main 50 tips. We do have a 51st tip, which is really important. Subscribe, please. Join the Discord, join the Patreon, like the video, and comment, please. That's really crazy that's there. Oh yeah. Let me know down below if you found any of these tips helpful. Let me know if you want to see another kind of video like this. I haven't done a video like this in a while. Long-time viewers might remember the interior tutorial, which I'll link down below, which is just kind of a similar style to this, but every tip is interior focused. But yeah, let me know down below if you want to see another video like this. And yeah, I'll see you guys next one. Shout out to my tier 2 patrons, Alic, Dragon, The Mango, Luke D007, Agony, Claire, Tommy, and Cass. I really appreciate your support. And yeah, I'll see you guys next one.